Okie doke, we are live, but we got to let it breathe just for a moment. Hope everyone's doing great tonight. Victory Monday evening. Gonna be dope. And we are good. Welcome in, everybody. It is the aftermath episode of the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, today I was doing a little perusal around the internet lands, the interwebs, and I found that everybody on the national level, without fail, is jumping on the Bronco bandwagon. I mean, even Deadspin, right? Deadspin loves to pillory any easy target to the nth degree and at any opportunity they get. Even Deadspin today, Zack, bowing down, saying the Broncos are for real. Sean Payton fixed Russell Wilson. So everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, but none of them are eating crow. None of them are standing up and saying, look, we were wrong. Hey, call a spade, whatever. But I guess now Sean Payton's made all of the non-believers into believers.
I didn't even know Deadspin's still a thing. I mean, last I checked, they were getting into identity politics, so I've stopped reading them. But it's a lot of pride and a lot of ego in national media circles. They don't want to admit they were wrong, and they still want that plausible deniability. If the Broncos do poorly to end the season, they can always revert back to their previous stances. But we have the receipts, Chad. That's what I mentioned last night with the Kyle Brandts and the Nick Wrights of the world. They could say what they want now, but we all know what they said before, and we're not going to let them forget it.
No doubt about it. Some hellos to the chat, to the early birds. Patty on YouTube. William, what's going on? Thanks for jumping in early. Kevin, David, so good to see you guys. Colin in the house. We don't always have the time or the opportunity, I should say, for those perfunctory hellos at the top of things. But thank you guys for being with us. Flazify with a very generous super chat jumping in. Appreciate you, brother. 2 nights in a row. Love it. Says it actually feels good to be a Broncos fan right now. I love the elite physicality that this team is playing with. Sean Payton for coach of the year. We need to beat Houston. Broncos can't be satisfied yet. Well said on all fronts, my friend. Zack, are you at all worried about the Broncos suddenly believing their own headlines and resting on their laurels? I mean, where do you feel the soul of this team is and the focus at this stage?
I don't think you can get beat by 50 points at any point of the season and, feel too high and mighty or rest on one's laurels. It wasn't that long ago where they were talking about tanking the season and putting VJ in prison and blowing everything up. So the Broncos are still going to be true to who they are, the underdog, the scrappy team. I mean, they're 3-point road dogs to Houston for this week. That should speak volumes as to how underrepresented they are, at least in the betting world. But this Houston game is essentially a playoff game because the Broncos and the Texans are both 6-5, but Houston, who has the 8th seed, there's 7 playoff seeds, they hold the tiebreaker due to better AFC winning percentage. So if the Broncos want to make the postseason, it starts next Sunday in Houston.
Excellent points. I think it's going to be another rock fight type of game. And I think this is the type of game where this predatory Broncos defense can make the shiny new hype quarterback make some bad decisions. We'll, of course, get way more into the Texans game when we're back on Thursday night. But Troy, the Fawn Donkey, thank you, buddy. So good to see you. Legendary mythical figure who we got to meet in person just a couple months back. Not quite. I guess 1 month back. Jeez, man. Time is weird. And I'm old. He says, hey, guys, waiving Marcus Haynes means we are signing who? Marcus Peters, Leonard, or are we just going to activate Johnson or Dulcich? Have a great show. Thank you, buddy. Zack, what's your answer for him? And bring everybody up to speed.
Yeah, as Troy said here, the Broncos waived Haynes from the practice squad today. And I do think, Troy, it's to bring someone up or bring someone back. Brandon Johnson is eligible to come off IR this week, and I think the Broncos would like to have another receiver out there. You can't keep relying on Lil Jordan Humphrey. Brandon Johnson looked actually really good when he was healthy, working with Russell Wilson in that passing offense. I want nothing to do with Marcus Peters. He's a cancer everywhere he goes, kind of like Randy Gregory. And by the way, Chad, the Broncos are now 5-0 since moving on from Gregory and also Frank Clark. Just as an aside, you don't want to invite that cancerous, toxic culture back in the Broncos locker room. In terms of Shaquille Leonard, last I heard, he was setting up a visit in Dallas. The Eagles also have interest. I do think he'll land at one of those two places. The Broncos, as far as I know, Chad, did not put in a waiver claim for Shaq when he was released.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said for the cultural shift that did occur in the immediate aftermath of Gregory and Clark being jettisoned. Mike, the Ronk in the house. Good to see you, brother. You know, we love you and appreciate the support as always. And I'm not a big believer in coincidences. Those who have been with us a long time know it's not, in my opinion, Zach, a coincidence that all of a sudden the Broncos energy, the intensity with which they played and their will, all that stuff suddenly improved by leaps and bounds in the immediate aftermath of those guys, hitting the bricks. So I don't know. There's something to it. And it's worked out well for the Broncos at the position, right? Because Nick Bonito, I mean, 6.5, seven sacks on the season, leading the team. Jonathan Cooper, solid, if not spectacular. He's definitely solid. And then once you got Baron Browning back, it kind of just rocketed into the stratosphere as a really strong, talented, young trio nucleus at outside linebacker. And it still feels like, Zach, that they're barely scratching the surface of their potential. So serendipity, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's turned into a sum of all their parts, the Broncos edge rushing unit. And I think that's how VJ likes to do it. He also used Drew Sanders as a hybrid at edge rusher yesterday against the Browns quite a lot. So a lot of different pieces, a lot of different players that can do different things, though I do believe Baron Browning is the OLB one of that group.
No doubt about it. AJ Zillinger, so good to see you, bro. Been a minute, but you have been a member of our listening audience and community as a Super Chat superstar a long time. Dare I say, Zach, my memory could be off. I mean, like I said, I'm old. I couldn't even tell you what I had for breakfast. All right. But I want to say AJ was a year one guy with us. Like, he's been there from the beginning. It's been a minute since I remember seeing him in the chat, but his roots run deep. He says, what do you think George Payton's job status is, Zach? So amid this 5-game swing, the Broncos went from being a national lampoon and fielding a historically bad defense. Sean Payton, turns out, isn't the quarterback whisperer everyone thought, because as improved as Russ was, even through those dark early weeks of this season, wasn't resulting in wins. And it's still not the most ideal Russ, when you talk about what could be or total vintage Russ. I mean, he has some insanely productive statistical seasons, but all those conversations shifted, of course, once the fortunes began to turn. And it went from a lot of people, Zach, saying, hey, George Payton, he might be one of the fall guys, because after all, he wasn't a hand-selected dude by Payton, Sean Payton, et cetera, et cetera. What's your answer?
I just find it funny, the double standard. When the Broncos were losing and there was a talent issue, it all fell on George Payton for securing said talent. But now that the Broncos are doing well, and some players, including Quinn Miners, who's having a Pro Bowl season, if you look at the numbers, that was a Sean Payton pick. All the players that are doing well were all Sean Payton's ideas, and all the players that were doing badly were all George Payton's fault. But I think there's some truth in the middle. George Payton is a draft guru. He has nailed, I think, his 3 draft classes in Denver and getting solid contributions. I mean, you mentioned Jonathan Cooper. He'll never be an all-pro future Hall of Famer, but he's a solid, unspectacular player that you would kill to have on your defense. But to answer the question directly, it's going to be tied to how the season goes. I don't have any firsthand knowledge. I do think, though, Sean and George are working well together. There was that setup in New Orleans with Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton. There was never a power struggle because they drew a line in the sand and they worked together. They didn't work at odds. I feel that's the same relationship that George and Sean have. And as long as the Broncos keep winning, why fix what's not broken?
It's like one of those proverbial, and ye shall know them by their fruits, right? And so far, the fruits of the George Payton, Sean Payton working relationship are mostly positive. As I said last night, I don't remember who it was that mentioned it exactly, but they called it a middling roster. And it may be a less than perfectly ideal roster because there are a few holes, especially on the defensive line. But I still think that these last 5 games have proven, Zach, that there was a lot more talent on this roster than had been given credit, that was basically dying for competent coaching to come
Right.
in and help them reach their potential. And that is a credit to George Payton in terms of the guy preceding Sean Payton, who was picking the groceries for, what was it, the last 2 years or 3? Was it 2020?
2021.
2021 was his first draft, right? Patrick Surtain. Okay, you're right. 21, 22. So for the preceding 2 years, uh, never say never. It is the NFL, Zach, but I would be surprised if the season does continue on this kind of direction that it seems to, on a positive track, if the Broncos were to part ways with George Payton.
I mean, you can buy filet mignon frozen and it's good quality grocery, but you still need someone to cook it and make it taste good. So
Amen.
Sean Payton has done a lot of the cooking, but you can't discount the groceries that George Payton brought in. I mean, two of the biggest contributors this season at Denver, Jaquan McMillan and Jaleel McLaughlin, both undrafted free agents that George Payton scouted and picked up, and he gave to Sean Payton and the rest of the coaches to work with, and they've become contributors and solid players. So you have to have that dichotomy. You have to have this simpatico relationship between front office and the coaching staff, and the Broncos seem to have it, Chad.
By the way, the next time you buy a steak and you're going to cook it at home, holla at your boy, because I have the perfect way. It's one of those things where you make a steak at home and you like it. It's steak. Hello. But then sometimes you go to let's say a steakhouse and you have a steak and you're like, man, this is so much better than what I've had, what I make myself at home. At least I'm telling my own story. All right, here. But I since learned the secret magic twist that they all do, because one of my best friends is an elite chef and easy to do at home. One of these days I'll talk about it. Zeus in the house. Thank you, brother.
Thank you,
So
Stu.
generous of you, my friend. I love you. The first face etched on the MHH Mount Rushmore is this cat right here. He's saying hi to everybody. Thank you, Stu. Really, really appreciate you. Zach, you're feeling pretty strong about your home steak cooking game.
Well, I was thinking to myself, you mentioned when you go to restaurants, you tend to like it. I went to a few months ago, I was in Vegas and I went to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. I used to watch Hell's Kitchen all the time, and I was so excited to get there. I think it was the Wellington, and it was the worst steak I've ever had in my entire life, Chad. I can cook
Whoa,
one up
really?
in an hour that would taste a lot better or less, whatever. I'm not the best chef in the world, though I do admit you can do things at home if you know what you're doing to make it taste just like a restaurant.
Wow. That does surprise me, because he's a guy, he's one of the few guys that actually, he's a go-to for me. Like if I'm trying to figure out, oh, I need to put this together for this, first thing I'll do is search a Gordon Ramsay recipe for it before I, on YouTube, where he walks you through it, before I go anywhere else. But Justin Simmons is the best safety 2 nights in a row, throwing down a super chat saying, I'm just here to say hello. Well, right back at you, dude. We really appreciate the support. It means the world to us, big dog. Zach, it kind of triggered me, his profile pic. Bring that back up if you wouldn't mind, real quick, Mr. Producer. So Justin Simmons is the best, but it's a picture of Jaleel McLaughlin. Now, I'm not making a comment on that disconnect, but it did remind me. Wait a minute, how did our boy Jaleel do on Sunday against the Browns? How involved was he? I mean, we can pull up if you guys are interested, I guess we can pull up the game book, but specifically from a touch perspective, Jaleel McLaughlin, Zach, 2 carries, 4 yards. That was a game that kind of gave rise to Samaje Perine, who definitely earned his bone, so to speak. Implications of that. Do you think Sean Payton, with how much opponents have been stacking the box, has realized, look, it's not conducive to a small guy as explosive as he is in Jaleel McLaughlin? We need a guy who can kind of fight fire with fire until we can start loosening up these box.
Yeah, I've noticed
Back boxes.
the shift in. I didn't mean to cut you off. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Chad. I've noticed the shift in recent weeks, though. Jaleel was the clear cut number 2 behind Javonte to open the season, and then Samaje Perine began to get involved in the fourth quarter as a pass catcher, and he's been performing so well and so clutch. It feels like Samaje kind of leapfrogged back into that number 2 role, but it's all interchangeable. Why I feel like McLaughlin is not being used as much is because the Broncos now have found their identity as a ground and pound, very gritty, tough, hard-nosed run-first team, and they need their power backs to do work, wear the defense is down until the fourth quarter, and that's when you can take your shots. I love McLaughlin, but he doesn't offer the same physicality as Samaje Perine, and he's not as good in pass pro as Samaje Perine is. And if you watch the fourth quarters of the last couple of weeks, I don't think the Broncos would get these victories if it wasn't for Perine.
He's definitely come in handy, man. The first few weeks of this season, we'll say the first quarter of this season, you and I had a few conversations, a couple of them, of course, on the podcast, where it's like kind of questioning, well, why did they spend the money on him? Because they're just using Pookie and they're using the rookie. And now we know he was there to help be that battering ram down the stretch and offer a change of pace in a way that is unlike that when you traditionally think of a change of pace, you go, oh, you're going from either a speed guy to a power guy or a power guy to a speed guy. He offers a change of pace in that he still brings you that power running. I would argue he's got better vision than Pookie. That's still my one knock on Javonte Williams is the vision thing. He runs into people too much. But Perine seems to have not the same issues recognizing the holes or at least anticipating, Zach, where they're going to be. And he brings you that pass blocking, sure, got that, no problem. But that receiving chops that so far I think has proved to be definitely superior to Pookie. And then we'll grab KB.
Yeah, like I said, if it wasn't for his pass catching ability, which got him the free agent deal from Denver, I don't know that the Broncos would have won 5 in a row. I was a Team McLaughlin guy to open the year. I thought he should be the number 2. I thought it was thunder and lightning between him and Pookie, but you're right. Javonte still is, his vision still questionable, and it doesn't seem like they run the same plays behind the same linemen, and on certain downs, it seems like Perine finds the hole, explodes through it, and has the same tackle-breaking ability as Javonte. I'm just fortunate, Chad, the Broncos have all 3, and Sean Payton can do different things with them.
Wow. This just jumped out to me. I heard Nick and Scott talking about how it's such a tell when Jaleel McLaughlin is on the field because he can't help you in pass pro and he's not much of a receiver. And so it very much waits for the defense what's going to come as a handoff to Jaleel McLaughlin. I mentioned earlier 2 carries, right, on the day. Exactly 2 offensive snaps yesterday against the Browns. So very interesting. KB, thank you for your patience. Old friend, we've missed you. Hope you're doing well. He says, I've never seen a team force so many turnovers since the Urlacher, Tillman, Chicago days. This is insane. Yeah, it is. But, Scott, what were the numbers you and Nick were throwing around this morning on the 2015 Broncos? 61 takeaways on the season? You got it wrong? I might have tuned out right at the wrong time. He'll put it in the chat for us. But, Zach, either way, the point being, this is an insane run this defense is on relative to takeaways. And it kind of looked for a minute there yesterday like maybe the streak was going to come to an end. Perhaps it truly was unsustainable. And then the floodgates opened, dude. 3 takeaways in the second half.
Because it's by design. I mean, some of it is luck. The ball is bouncing in the Broncos' favor, whereas in the last 5 years, it was bouncing against their favor. But it's the scheme and it's the way that they're playing, getting a lead on offense and allowing the defense to play with their hair on fire and forcing teams into different game script in the fourth quarter when the Broncos do have a lead, forcing more passes and not relying on a complementary offense to run the ball. That's the only downside to the Broncos defense, Chad, is the rushing defense is stopping the run. Though I will say, the Broncos are going to have a game soon, maybe Sunday, maybe not, where the offense they're playing doesn't turn the ball over, and they have to prove they can still be as dominant and as elite without forcing a turnover. If they want to do that, though, they got to clean up the rushing defense. We talked about it last night. It still remains their bugaboo, and it's going to be an issue as the season closes up.
It's crazy. As it stands, the Broncos now officially lead the league in takeaways, but the Buffalo Bills and Niners are right behind them with 21. So the Broncos have 22 total takeaways. so far this season. The Bills and Niners each have 21, and then the Jaguars, Steelers, and Saints have 20. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Real quick before I grab Claude, 35 total takeaways for the 2015 Broncos. That's right. 61 for the 85 Bears. That's right. So 35 Broncos. This Broncos squad, 2022. 2023. If they stay on the same track, could come close to meeting the world champion Broncos. 35 takeaways. Claude, such generous stars, big boy stars, as we like to say on this show. Thank you, buddy. He says, so fellas, what do you see happening with these last 6 games? I don't expect to win out, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Go Broncos. Hey, never forget Peyton Manning, after that Chargers comeback in year 1 back in 2012. I like telling the story, so I'll keep it brief though. Went on that was a win, a comeback win, historic one that sparked Zach an 11-game win streak. They did not lose again in the regular season. So is it within the realm of the possible? Absolutely, but it won't be easy because, as Zach mentioned earlier, you got the Texans next. You've got a tilt against the Lions. Those are the 2 big looming matchups.
Yeah.
And then, hey, it's any given Sunday. You can't ever let your guard down, but it does kind of work out nicely, Zach, that the last 3 games of this season, I mean, even if they lose both these 2 games, the Houston and Detroit game, even if they lose both, it does set up nicely these last 3 Patriots, Chargers, Raiders for the Broncos before the full playoff arithmetic is settled. But what's your answer for Claude?
Well, if you figure the Broncos have a 2-game margin for error, they have to get to 10-7 to have a shot. I'm not saying that's what they should be aiming for, but that's the minimum. If they're going to lose a game, I'd prefer it to be Detroit because it's out of conference. It wouldn't affect them that much. But this week's game is essentially a playoff game. I mentioned it at the top of the show. Houston has the tiebreaker. They need to leapfrog the Texans and really take control of their own destiny. I don't know that they're going to win out. If I could predict that, I wouldn't be doing a podcast right now, obviously, but who's to say they can't? I mean, who's to say, who would have predicted the Broncos would have rattled off 5 straight wins and taken down Kansas City, Buffalo, Minnesota, Cleveland, back to back to back to back. So it can happen. Will it happen? I don't know, but I'm feeling way more confident in the Broncos getting to that magic number of 10.
Amen. I gotta say, Ray, as far as wearing your underwear inside out and backwards for good luck yesterday, keep that streak going. You know, hopefully the missus doesn't.
Figuratively, not literally.
Yes. Dad jokes, zing. Patriot Tex, what's up, brother? Thank you so much. Great to see you. A key and core member of our community. Says there will still be changes to the roster at season's end because of contracts expiring. So who comes back and who goes? I'm trying to think of the contract year guys. Josie, Kareem. I don't think they'll bring back Tim Patrick, but we'll see.
Let me pull it up real quick.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Offense. Lloyd, you got to come up with a decision on Lloyd Cushenberry, set to be a free agent.
I'm re-signing him.
Who else was a 2020 pick? Judy's a 5th year. KJ's gone. A lot of that 2020 class is gone. But those are the 3 that immediately come to mind. And I think Josie Jewell probably, if I had to bet on it, I'd probably bet on him not returning because they did draft Drew Sanders, and he is the highest drafted linebacker in Denver since DJ Williams, who was a first-round pick back in 2004. So they got some plans for him. He saw quite a lot of action yesterday, Zach, for what it's worth. Drew Sanders, he received the rookie 21 snaps. So he played about a third of the defensive snaps yesterday. I mean, that's a metric that continues to grow. I think that I'm not saying it is, it's not an absolute, it's the NFL, but it could kind of hint at how the Broncos ideally want this to turn out. And that is Drew Sanders as a starter sooner than later, which isn't great news for Josie Jewell.
I found the list on OTC of the Broncos free agents in 2024. You mentioned Jewell, Kareem Jackson, K'Wan Williams. I don't know how necessary he is now with the emergence of Jaquan McMillan, Cam Fleming by Mike Purcell, Will Lutz, Adam Troutman, PJ Locke, who I'd want to bring back, Michael Burton, the number 2 ranked fullback in the NFL, according to PFF. He's a UFA. Dwayne Washington, the running back, Cushenberry, who you mentioned, Fabian Moreau, Ben Neiman, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Jonathan Harris, Jonas Griffith, Quinn Bailey, Justin Sternad, and Ronnie Perkins. Of that list, Chad, I'm bringing back Cush, probably PJ if he takes a reasonable deal. Will Lutz has been solid this year, but other than that, maybe Fabian Moreau. Other than that, though, there's not any real have to have or must re-sign on that list.
I'm starting to trend toward, you said PJ Locke. I'm starting to trend towards whatever you got to do to keep him here. Just because Kareem, this was like, hey, we're bringing you back for one last trip, right? One last rodeo, one last showdown. And his play, you take away the penalties and suspensions, which are all negative, but even without that, his play when he's on the field, I remember that first year he was in Denver, Zach, and we were still kind of getting to know him as a player relative to the Broncos. I mean, we knew his story and watched him all those years in Houston, but we were still getting to know him. And I remember it was like week 5, he missed something like that. And then he came back week 6, and it was like, wow, palpable impact difference when he is on the grass. And, it's just not that way anymore. Would I rather have him on the field than, say, Deller and Turner Yell? Absolutely. But PJ Locke, meanwhile, is becoming a bona fide playmaker, not just a solid guy to have in a pinch that's not going to cost you, but like a playmaker. So if he continues to trend this way, I'm doing what I can, as you said, within reason, to bring him back.
It's kind of funny watching the Broncos fan base unanimously rally around someone with the last name Locke. But, here we are, Chad. I agree with you. He has been so impactful. And yesterday he was a true difference maker. I'm not talking about him knocking out Amari Cooper, but the physicality and the athleticism he brings to the position next to Simmons has been eye-opening. I do think, though, we have lowered the bar so much because we've had to watch Kareem Jackson in that role starting for years and years and years now. And PJ is a breath of fresh air in comparison because he can actually run and cover sideline to sideline.
For what it's worth, too, Josie Jewell this season, just before I wrap up this subject, he has he started 9 of the 10 games, but the one game he got injured in, he didn't play most of that game. So really, he's got 8 full games. He's got 63 combined tackles. So if he really kind of picks it up, if he picks it up just a little, he'll break 100 tackles again for the 3rd time in his career, and it would be back to back for him. But nothing I'm really seeing with my eyes. And then, as far as watching him, and then of course what I'm seeing in the box score, I could be sleeping on the intangible aspect, right? Because that's another, you want to talk about palpable shift. When Justin Simmons and Josie Jewell were gone for those 2 games together, man, that's when the Broncos defense was its most lost, including the Miami game. So perhaps that's not a gift horse we should be looking in the mouth. After all, Jamal Killings, one of the coolest names in our community. So good to see you, bro. Been with us a long, long time in the community here at MHH. He's saying, I am enjoying the winning streak. Denver Broncos for life. It feels nice after all these years. It really does feel good. Phil, down in Tucson, proving Broncos country is not a geographic location. It is, in fact, a state of being. Love you, big dog. He says, good evening. I thought it was funny when Sean Payton said the second scoregami was nice. Go Broncos, hashtag Buckham, hashtag MHH for life. Yeah, Zach, for those who might have missed it yesterday, explain that because you had the write-up for us today on at Mile High Huddle.
And I literally led the article with, if you don't know what scoregami means, don't feel bad because Sean Payton did either. He was asked about the Broncos achieving that. And what it is, scoregami is a final score that's never been done before in the NFL. So the Broncos' final score yesterday against Cleveland was 29-12. That was the 1,081st unique final score in the league's 103-year history, I'm pretty sure. So when Sean Payton was asked about it, he goes, what's a gami? I haven't heard of that before. And he couldn't even believe, Chad, that was a first in NFL lore, NFL canon, that 29-12 had never happened before.
It is surprising. Just because there's so many games. I mean, maybe perhaps not relative to like say NBA or MLB, but you know, 16 games for so many years across 32 teams. You would think somewhere along the way it would have happened long, Zach, before the schedule turned to 17 games, and it happened yesterday. But kind of unique and cool, more symbology that the Broncos are blazing something new, a new trail, so to speak. Kendrick, bro, really appreciated your comment on X on Twitter. You are the man. Really appreciate your support and generosity as well. He says, "My guys, I saw an article that we were being called dirty Denver. LOL. If legal physical football is dirty, then you can call me filthy because I absolutely love it. In the words of Justin Simmons, it's football. MHH for life. Go Broncos." I mean, who could you even allege, Zach, is dirty? First of all, I'll meet you in saying that Kareem is reckless. Dirty implies doing so to try and hurt the opponent, in my opinion. Like specifically trying to be injurious. Is that a word? To cause injury. Some people argue, perhaps Scott's bringing up how Locke was getting accused for it after going after Cooper's ribs. It is nonsense. It's adds absolute utter nonsense, as was the penalty on Baron Browning. So I'm with you, Kendrick, on saying if that physical brand, intense, smothering, predatory defense, if that's what you're going to call dirty, then we'll go ahead and call ourselves filthy.
The Broncos are a physical football team. That's what they've prided themselves on being since that Week 3 disaster, and credit to Vance Joseph for instilling that mindset. But the game of football is naturally physical. It's naturally violent. It always has been and always will be. And unless the NFL literally puts flags on these players and employs that type of rule set, you're going to continue seeing this happen. And the Broncos are the redheaded stepchild getting called out for it on every occasion. If you rewatch the Baron Browning hit, he never left both of his feet. He never launched. His eyes were up. His head was up, and he hit shoulder to chest or shoulder, whatever it was. Everyone's pointing to the fact that DTR had a bloody lip or a concussion or whatever. If you watch how he fell, though, his head, he fell face down on the turf. That would happen on any hit if a player falls over. It's a violent game. And again, if DTR wasn't injured on that play or Amari Cooper wasn't hurt on that play, I don't think there'd be all this cause for concern. I just don't get the pearl clutching now, Chad, over a sport that since its inception has not only welcomed violence, but promoted violence and enabled violence. It is what it is.
Let him hate.
Let him hate.
Also, you know what? Wear a mouthpiece. I was going to say this.
Exactly.
Thank you, Scott. Quarterbacks, because of how much talking they do have to do at the line of scrimmage, many of them, and every time I see a snapshot of Patrick Mahomes sticking his tongue out like he's Michael Jordan in the pocket, I'm going, dude, you're going to lose that thing. This is football, dog. I mean, Jordan doing it on a dunk when he's wide open and no one around him, okay. But, bro, you're in the pocket about to get trucked. It could come on from the blind side. You never know it. And that tongue is gone. So in the case of DTR, though, we do wish him a speedy recovery. Justin Simmons is the best safety. You're going to have to tell us your real name, dude, or at least give us like a different name, of pseudonym, something, because I love it, but it's just a long name to say. JSITBS. No, still too long. But he says, if the Broncos get to 10 wins, I'll donate 500. Look, bro, that's very generous of you. We do not expect you to do that. Don't feel like you have to do it. Let's hope, though, Zach, that it comes true, the 10 wins, because, man, it'd be hard, I think, even in the way things are shaking up, be hard to miss the playoffs as a 10 victory team. But with the 17 game schedule, it is a little bit closer to what a 9-win season meant for all those years.
And even if you miss out on the playoffs, going 10-7, doubling your win total from last year, especially how you started this season at 1-5, the Broncos' first double-digit win season in however many years it's been, Chad, 8 or so, 9 years. That would be a successful first-year campaign for Sean Payton. So Justin Simmons is the best safety. Chad, you're right. We need a shorter name that doesn't roll off the tongue. We appreciate the gesture, but I just want it for you. I want it for all of Broncos country to feel what it's like to have a winning product back on the field and also play some meaningful football deep into December and into January, hopefully.
We have the shot of life himself, Naj Altaf, in the house with a very generous super. Appreciate you, big dog. He says, hey, brothers, feels great being a Broncos fan right now. This upcoming game seems to me will be a high-scoring shootout. I see Judy going off for 3 scores this week. And this week, Russ will have a chance to light it up. Go Broncos. You know, it's interesting, Naj, because the Broncos have had a lot of success in Houston. So I don't know. There's always the opportunity for precedents to be broken. I mean, after all, could have been, that meme. Nobody beats the Denver Broncos 17 times in a row. But still, I feel pretty good about it. I'm still kind of marinating on exactly how I view this game, and we'll talk a lot more about Houston on Thursday night. But yeah, we were 9-7 the year after the Super Bowl. Didn't quite make the playoffs. So if what I'm saying, Zach, is that a 10-win season on a 17 game schedule is maybe means something closer mathematically to a 9-win season. Perhaps 10 wins alone doesn't get you over the hump in an AFC conference that is as stacked as it is.
Yeah, we got Tanner Holst, a 1999 super. So good to see you, Tanner. Thank you so much. Tanner goes, it's been a minute. Life's been crazy. Let's go Broncos. Playoffs. Just wanted to show some love. Always watch after I get off work. Hashtag state of being, hashtag Broncos for life. Thank you so much, Tanner. And I want to just tack on something to the Naj comment. I would love for Russ to go off and have a 500-yard, 5-touchdown game, but the Broncos don't need that from Russell Wilson. I don't care that his numbers aren't so flashy. As long as he's not turning the football over and making the throws he's supposed to make, the Broncos are winning games. I am completely fine with that. And I have a feeling, Chad, that same formula that we've seen in the last 5 weeks is going to continue in Houston. About Jerry Jeudy, though, I'm a little perturbed. If you remember the play he had yesterday, he caught a little screen or a quick hitter on the sideline and dipped out of bounds before really trying for that first down. The lack of effort on Jerry Jeudy's part, being scared of contact or just not fighting like I would want a player to fight for every inch, still bothers me. I'm not going to lie.
That's one of the things so strange about, all the comments last night we were getting about, man, aren't we glad that we didn't trade Sutton, and to think we even were considering it, blah, 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 all that. True. None of it's wrong. Glad the Broncos held on to Courtland Sutton, but how ironic it is that everyone, in March, who was anticipating a trade coming because of the rumors, it was like, no, whatever you do, don't let go of Jerry Jeudy, man. If you're going to trade one of these guys, trade Courtland Sutton. How inverted the world has become on that front. But Zach, going back to Naj real quick, and then we're going to grab Phil. I just want to give you one little word of caution relative to, let's say, yards. The Houston Texans defense is ranked 13th. All right. Points against Houston is ranked 18. So it's kind of it's basically like a middle of the road defense against the pass, total yards against the pass. For what it's worth, Houston is 6. So that's like their saving grace. Rushing, Houston is, sorry, I have to redo this every time. Houston's 24. So this could be a game where the Broncos continue getting their run on. Phil, brother, thank you. He says, so guys, we've started the third quarter with the ball 9 out of 11 times. Results: 7 punts, a missed field goal, and a blocked field goal. When do we start turning this around? Excellent research on your part, Phil. I don't know, but I do have faith that it can and will get turned around, because how long, Zach, were we lamenting the inability of this team to score early, right? And then all of a sudden, you got Sean Payton, and if memory serves, first possession all time ever of Sean Payton's team as head coach, Broncos Raiders, 80-yard touchdown scoring drive. And we still lamented for the ensuing 4 or 5 games, Zach, how spotty they were scoring wise, right? Like, hey, it's great that you're scoring early, but could we maybe get some points after the first quarter and so on? But things are coming together. The chemistry's really starting to kind of coalesce, and it is an issue that could really help them a lot in the second half. Phil, you're 100% right, but I can't tell you when, but I think it will get better.
Yeah, I was going to say we were lamenting a lot last season that the Broncos could not score in the third quarter under Hackett. That was always a major sticking point for me. And it seems like that issue has carried over. I don't know if it's a personnel thing or what, but they have to be better. You're right. Coming out of the break, I do believe some of it has to do with the Broncos being so scripted in the first half, and it's worked to their advantage. I mean, yesterday they went down the field against the best defense in the NFL and effortlessly put it into the end zone for 6. But they have to, when halftime rolls around and the other team makes adjustments and they're off their script, they have to be better and more consistent scoring points, because you can't rely on fourth quarter heroics each and every week. You can't be the cardiac Broncos each and every week, because you're not going to win that way each and every week. So I fully agree. You got to be better in the third frame.
Guys, we're about out of time. So any burning topics, questions, get it in the chat. We're going to grab this very generous super chat from Josh. Then we're going to do an update on where things stand for this month's jersey. And then we'll see where things stand, but we're probably getting pretty close to calling it. Josh, thank you, bud. He says, penalties were at an all-time bad. I'm glad we were coached and played well enough for it to not cost us the game. That's how it should be. Hashtag playoff bound. Yes, indeed. We didn't get to do, Zach, a head-to-head this past Thursday. So what I'm about to read to you here is a week old, meaning that it doesn't include week 12's results. But in the penalties committed department, remember, for much of the first quarter of this season, the Broncos were the worst team in the NFL in penalties committed. But going into this past Sunday, they were ranked tied for 22nd. So that was a metric that continues, I think, to go down. Meanwhile, Zach, the Broncos no longer are the number one team in opponent penalties committed, at least going into week 12. Again, we'll be able to tell you exactly where things stand when you guys see us next, but that is a positive development. This team kind of getting its wits about it, Zach, and finding its poise.
I think the positive development is the Broncos are learning to overcome mistakes, be it self-inflicted or not, and winning ball games in spite of that. It's pretty impressive. The Broncos actually beat 2 teams yesterday simultaneously, the Cleveland Browns and the officiating crew. It was god-awful, and I'm not saying that because I cover the Broncos or any sort of bias. If I watched that game as a neutral observer, I'd be saying, what the F was that roughing the passer, all the penalties called. And I watched the Buffalo Philly game yesterday, and one instance where Josh Allen was very evidently horse collared, they didn't call a horse collar. Instead, they called him for intentional grounding. So all around the league, the officiating is at, like the comment said, an all-time low, and it's not getting any better. The NFL needs full-time referees and needs them yesterday.
Real quick, while I'm on this just jumped out to me. It has nothing to do with anything we've talked about up to this point. But it was kind of cool, Zach, to see Russell Wilson reach a milestone from a franchise perspective. With that singular touchdown pass yesterday against the Browns, he became just the 7th Bronco quarterback to record 20 passing touchdowns within the first 10 games of a season. So he's trending for a total touchdown somewhere in the low 30s is about where he's trending. And man, we haven't had production like that since Peyton Manning. And he did, unfortunately, for what it's worth, come 8 points shy of becoming the first quarterback in Broncos quarterback since Peyton Manning in 2014 to record a 100 passer rating or better in 4 straight games, finished with 91.9. The Ronk in the house. He's saying it's not how the Broncos started in the NFL. It's about how the Broncos finish. Yes, it is. That's an excellent, excellent point. Bronco Bradley and the Peytonettes. I love it. Thank you for the super chat. Very cool. Very cool. Also a little long, but cool. David Valenzuela jumping in on Facebook with some star action. Really, really appreciate you, David. Thank you, buddy. Nathan Johnson jumping in with the super, saying, very generous. Thank you, Nathan. The Texans haven't beaten a team with a winning record. All their wins are against teams with a losing record. I didn't realize that. I'll be honest. I didn't realize that, Zach. Did you?
I did not. I've watched some Texans games this year. I've been a big fan of CJ Stroud, who's on my fantasy team, so there's some investment with him, but I did not know that. But yeah, I'm just impressed by what D'Amico Ryans has done in Houston. I mean, they were a laughing stock 1 year ago, and he's made them into a respectable team, especially on defense. They play hard, they play physical, and they have their home crowd in it every week. It's going to be a tough test for Denver this Sunday.
Ideal situation, really. I can remember those reports when the hiring rumors were still rolling that D'Amico being linked to Denver, and then reports coming out that he was more interested in the Houston job, and us kind of being indignant, going, "How? Come on!" But if you think about it, it was ideal to start as a head coach with a team that had that high of a draft pick, where
Right.
you could get your franchise guy out of the gates, and then if you're truly confident in your abilities as a first time head coach, that's probably the ideal situation, what you're actually gunning for, because look at what it does for you. I mean, you get to build a new culture with a true franchise guy, and that's how it's turned out anyway with CJ Stroud. But just to put that to the limit, all right, or to the test, sorry, the Texans lost to the Ravens to open the season, then lost to the Colts. Both have a winning record currently. Then they defeated the Jags, who are a winning team. All right. So they have beat one team with a winning record. Then they beat the Steelers, also a winning, last I checked, Zach, a team with a winning record.
Mhm.
Lost to the Falcons, defeated the New Orleans Saints. Then they lost to the Panthers. Bizarre. Then they defeated the Bucks, defeated the Bengals. What are the Bengals at record-wise now?
5-6, something like that.
NFC South, and the Bucks are 4-7. Okay. So there's that. Uh, then week 11, they defeated the Cardinals and lost to the Jags, and now they host the Broncos. So to kind of say they don't beat teams with a winning record, or their track record isn't as well against winning teams, that's true. But they have defeated teams that currently entering week 13, Zach, have a winning record in the form of at least the Jaguars and the Steelers.
I'm pretty sure I saw a stat as well that the Dolphins have only beaten one team this year with a winning record, and that would be your Denver Broncos. But I was listening to what you were saying
Yeah,
about
7-4 Steelers. Hello.
how attractive the job opening was. If you pick the right quarterback, because if you
Right.
don't pick the right quarterback, as Frank Reich learned today, it can cost you your job. But even that position in Carolina, as bad as it must be working under someone like David Tepper, I mean, that's a team flush with cap space. They have a high draft pick, or did they give it to Chicago? Right? They gave it to Chicago to move up.
I don't
Last
remember
year,
the details on that one.
but you got to nail the guys. What I'm saying,
No doubt.
quarterback.
Excellent point. Kendrick, appreciate you again, bro. He says, I just can't help myself. I wonder if Nathaniel Hackett was in the meeting room today thinking, maybe it is me. LOL. I stand on this. Coaching matters. Amen, dude. You got two guys that are going to nod their head every time on that. I mean, it's pretty clear. 2022 versus 2023 is a perfect lesson on the veracity of that statement. KB, I think Denver's defense brings Stroud back down to earth. I have a feeling on that too. It's kind of matriculating, so to speak. Again, we'll have a lot more to say about the Texans matchup on Thursday. Ronk in the house. Thank you, bro. Let me just give you guys the super chat rankings for the jersey for the month of November, because after today, you got basically 3 days, 20th, 29th, 30th. So here's where things stand. As you guys know, each and every month, we take the top 10 finishers on Super Chat. That's a cumulative thing. Their names go in a hat, and then we randomly select in front of everybody a winner who gets to pick a Denver Broncos jersey of their heart's desire. It's a small way that we can say thank you for this great support we get. So here are your rankings. Number 1, currently, Ethan remains at the pole position. Pardon me. DWI guys. Number 2, the Duchess has climbed a few ranks of late to be in number 2. Stu at 3. He'll climb a little after tonight as well, perhaps. FA at 4. Naj at 5. Could climb a little after tonight. And then Mike Edel jumping into the top 6. Love it, dude. Troy is at 7. Sure Hang is at 7. The GLP is at 9. Coach Chris at 10. And then just a couple of names outside the top 10. Sam Bam, David McElrath, Riptide, D. Porter, Chris Hernandez, Steve Hale, etc. So much love and respect, you guys. I mean, when you guys, it could be 50 cents worth of stars on Facebook. It could be a 99-cent super. Anytime, Zach, someone donates their hard-earned money to our channel and what we do here, we view that as a immense blessing and an honor.
Yeah.
So thank you, guys. Eric says on Facebook, what's up, Priest? I got to say, I'm pretty damn pumped with the crazy turnaround, beating good teams and experiencing mile-high magic again. 3-point dogs to the Texans, but expecting another dub. MHH for life, Denver Broncos. Amen to that. Well said, my friend. And Scott, are we clear? I think that does it, Zach, unless you have any parting thoughts.
No, I think I, issued them pretty well on this aftermath edition of the Broncos Week 12 victory over Cleveland, 5th straight. If you're not doing so, everyone, guys and gals, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can also follow the main account at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some MHH merch, like we're always rocking each and every podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get yo swag on. If you haven't, also please drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on IG at mile_high_huddle. And also be sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. 5-star review, as always, on Apple Podcasts. But if anything, guys and gals, ladies and gents, be sure to subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Amen to that. A mile-high salute. Much love and respect to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters tonight. Shout out going to, starting with Flazify, Troy, AJ, Zeus, Justin Simmons is the best safety, KB, Patriot Tex, Jamal, Kendrick, Naj, Tanner, Josh, Nathan, Bronco Bradley, and then also on Facebook, the Ronk, of course, Michael Ronquillo, Tucson Phil. If it'll pull up for me, come on, baby. It's been doing this lately while we're live. I might not be able to read them off perfectly. So Eric, who else? I'm missing one. I'm missing at least one. Dang it. I hate it when this happens. Hold on. Scott's telling me. Claude. That's right. Claude and David. So much love and respect, you guys. Appreciate you so much. We'll be back Thursday where we'll get to do a true head-to-head Broncos Texans. Gonna be a gas. Don't miss the great shows and programming we have in between then. Broncos for breakfast tomorrow, once again, plus Building the Broncos Tuesday night, Mile High Insiders Wednesday night, more Broncos for breakfast Thursday, and then we're back in the saddle Thursday night. Can't wait.
Have a great week, y'all. We'll see you Thursday night. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.